Hey guys, thanks for joining us for part 2 of my discussion about worldwide economic collapse and everything else we're seeing going on with Andy Hoffman from Miles Franklin. Andy, welcome back.
Happy to be here as always.
Andy, I want to ask you now about QE3 and the Fed buying mortgage-backed securities and tell people what that means, but I also want to talk about sterilized bond buying and ECB. To me, it seems like the powers that be, the central banks, they're all coordinating their criminal activity, which may just keep this Ponzi scheme propped up longer than you and I both expect and longer than Max Keiser expects. He's calling for a total global collapse by April.
Okay, so the Fed's, what the changes that they've made, at least the ones on paper, because they do plenty of stuff behind the scenes, they are now going to keep their zero interest rate policy. They changed it. I mean, last year it was until late 2013, then they changed it to mid-2014. Now it's at least mid-2015, the criminal banks are going to get zero interest rates while the rest of us have to pay market rates. Secondly, they're going to be buying open-ended with no time limit, $40 billion a month of mortgage securities. Okay, so that's $480 billion a year if they stay at that rate. On top of that, they're going to continue Operation Twist forever, whatever. I think that's at this point $45 billion a month of buying treasuries, and they call it, as you say, sterilized. They say they're selling short-term to buy long-term, but it's really ridiculous because the whole point of zero interest rate policy means you are buying short-term bonds to keep interest rates low. So they're buying them with the open market operations, the short-term, and then they're buying the long-term ones. So I don't see any sterilization at all. They're basically adding to the balance sheet at $85 billion a month, no matter what chicanery they use on their accounting. Now, the same thing with the ECB. Actually, I didn't see any sterilization in that. They basically agreed in their what they call OMT, or outright monetary transactions, to buy. I think the number, if you include Germany's $190 billion cap, is like a 450 billion euro fund, which is something like, I don't know, $600 or $700 billion, and that's simply to buy sovereign bonds. There's no sterilization at all. To me, I wrote a piece right after doing the math. I mean, since remember, 100 billion of that is going right to the Spanish banks, and of course, that $700 billion has to be funded by the actual countries that need the money, like Italy and Spain. I mean, 40 billion is supposed to come from Spain, but Spain needs the money, so that doesn't count. And of course, Italy is supposed to contribute like close to $100 billion, but they need the money. So these are countries that can't even fund this. So I'm not even sure why they even call it a fund. It really comes down to just the Germans. They're going to put in there, something like $350 billion, and that's it. That's not a lot of money. That's not going to prop up Europe for much longer. So I have much lower hopes that this Ponzi scheme can be held off much longer in Europe. Possibly in the United States a little longer because we have the reserve currency and we have the ability through this open-ended QE3 to go on a little longer. But generally speaking, Max Keiser could be just as right as anyone else per what we talked about before. He's a smart man. He doesn't see the future, but April, sure. November, next year, I don't know. It's going to happen. I just don't know when.
Well, tell me this. Would you agree with me or not? If collapse doesn't happen, it's kind of a good thing because our way of life could get so dire and so horrible in a collapse scenario that maybe the longer this goes on, the better? Or is it better to have a collapse because then all these unjustified, unconstitutional wars would stop as well?
Well, these are the question is the lesser of two evils, but of course each one of these scenarios carries with it a huge amount of unforeseen consequences. Well, particularly if you're going to talk about keeping this going on for longer than we expect, which I agree with Max. I don't believe it can go on much longer. But let's say it did. All it's doing is sentencing more future generations, to living horrible lives. So, great. So we get an extra year. So instead of me being 43 when it happens, I'll be 44. I don't really think it changes our life much. Look, the only way things can ever improve is by cleaning the slate and starting over with things that work. I mean, that's how the U.S. initially got started. We left Britain because we didn't like how things were run, and we had to go through years of hardship and revolution until we finally were able to start all over. And this is going to be the same thing here, obviously on a much bigger scale. and I'm not looking forward to it. I don't write what I write because I think it's fun or that I'm looking forward to gold being $1 zillion an ounce. I'm trying to protect people, and I'm trying to protect myself as best I can. And look, there's only one way that this can end, and that's going to be with currency collapse. And with currency collapse is all the bad things we talk about, whether it happens next month or next year or 2 years from now if they're lucky.
I'm with you, Andy. None of us are hoping for anything bad. None of us are hoping for anything but for good to come from this, and hopefully a reboot of the Constitution and the Republic. That's essentially what Steve Pieczenik was touching on in that broadcast with Alex Jones on the 16th, and he was really speaking some truth that really hasn't been spoken by too many others in a very long time, maybe ever. I'd be remiss not to touch on precious metals, gold and silver specifically. The moves we've seen since August have been really astounding, really terrific, and they played right into exactly what Bill Murphy from GATA predicted would happen based on what his London source was telling him. What's your take, and what are your sources telling you? Are we going to see more of these moves right through the end of the year?
Well, I don't have the same sources he has. My sources are sources like what he's saying and all the people on the internet that I read and the technicals and fundamentals that I look at. Look, for the past year, if you could just take out all the fundamentals, because obviously they've gotten dramatically better in the past year, you look at this consolidation pattern we've had in gold and also, more importantly, in euro gold, rupee gold, and all the other currencies gold. The machinations of the cartel that started last September 6th at Operation PM Annihilation, the day that gold hit its all-time high, have created nothing more than a massive, massive base with some of the most, technically strong bottoming formations I've ever seen. They've now pretty much broken away from them. We've seen the bullish crossovers of the 50-day over the 200 in gold and shortly in silver, and more importantly, euro gold and rupee gold are sitting within 1% of their all-time highs right now. I mean, that's 2 billion people in the world that use euros and rupees, and I assure you, when those two things break out, which could be any day, you're going to see massive, massive physical buying. I could also tell you from Miles Franklin's standpoint that we've had our busiest month of the year since late August, and I don't anticipate that slowing anytime soon. I really believe that, I personally believe that there's really next to a zero chance of a material decline this fall. I really think we're going to see new all-time highs in gold by the end of the year, possibly in silver, depending how fast things move. And more importantly, it's going to be fear this time, not greed, like we saw when silver went to $50. And I think people should be very, very cognizant of the fact that, as we say all the time, supply can run out very quickly. It's very, very scarce, and there's so many black swans out there that could get people clearing out the store shelves. Frankly, I don't believe Miles Franklin's going to be around for many more years because I don't think there's going to be any gold to sell. And at some point when it gets sold out, the governments are going to take whatever supply is left for themselves.
I don't get paid for people calling Miles Franklin and protecting themselves by buying gold and silver. So I just want people to realize that you are a trusted source. Miles Franklin is. Can you tell people how to make this happen?
Yeah, we're one of the largest dealers in the nation. We've been around for 22 years, and we can help you in any way, shape, and form. Just go to milesfranklin.com or call 800-822-8080. Remember, I can be reached at any time, Hoffman at milesfranklin.com, and I'm happy to answer your questions about the industry and about the macroeconomic picture at any time.
Yeah, I'm going to end on this. You know what's funny? Just a little anecdote for you, Andy. It's just crazy. So it seems that no matter how bad things get, it seems like no matter what the Fed or the ECB does, it seems that no matter how bad the non-farms payroll report is, no one wakes up. Rarely does somebody come to me and say, I got to get some of that silver you've been talking about. How do I do that? It's just astounding, Andy, that for guys like us and the audience listening, for those of us that are listening and know about the real stuff and the way the world works, we're among the fraction of the fraction that understands this stuff and actually is prepared with precious metals. Does that ever blow you away?
Well, it used to, not anymore. I mean, we're 40 years into a global experiment where the entire world is on fiat currency, so people have been brainwashed to believe that that's what money is, as opposed to the currency that it really is. It's just fiat currency. And again, remember, most of the world doesn't have any money to protect themselves, even if they wanted to. So that's a huge amount of people that would never dream. It's like Mitt Romney saying 47% of the population will never vote for him because they just want to be on the dole. Well, that is the truth. There's a lot of people out there who couldn't protect themselves if they want to. Now, the way I put it, because I clearly see it in my business, in my blog, I see explosive increase in interest. But, as you say, I'd say we've gone from 1% of the population understanding it to 2%, which is a double, but it's coming from a small base. And, like I said, when the supply runs out, very, very few people are going to be in the trade. And I really feel terrible. And I do my best to educate, as you do, as many people as possible.
Yeah, that's a great point about the doubling, the 1% to 2%. Well, guys, spread the word. Time is running out, but you really can help people by spreading the word. And unlike Lloyd Blankfein, who would say he's doing God's work, you'd actually be doing God's work by trying to help people. So, Andy Hoffman from Miles Franklin, thanks so much for joining us. As always, we really appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks, man. Bye-bye.
Well, friends, that does it. I really appreciate you tuning in and sharing this information with others. For daily news and information, please check out sgtreport.com and visit my new website, thelibertymill.com. Real news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Thanks for watching.